Hello everyone, Silver Contrail here with another article aftermath. A little late on this one. Really busy week. In fact, I'm going to be busy doing homework and studying the rest of the day as soon as I get done with this. Hooray! Okay, so last week we talked about protecting sided cards and all the different things we can do to do that. And actually it was somewhat of a shorter article. I usually don't write articles that short. Got some comments. And I'll just address the top one right away with this. Prohibition. Okay. So, if you're using Prohibition, and I've done this countless times, just go Prohibition, call Typhoon. And this is assuming you have something else on the board that's keeping your opponent from making plays. So, on the one hand, you've got like a Gozen match or a rivalry or something, an Imperial Iron Wall maybe, and then you go ahead and you Prohibition Typhoon. Now, how do they get that card off the board? It's a good question because not a whole lot of decks can actually pull that off. I mean, Dragon Rulers have Blaster, Spellbooks have something. They've got World. Can they use World? They can use World. It's not always easy, especially with Heavy Storm being banned right now. Players are really relying on their Typhoons to get rid of problematic cards that are stopping their plays. So if you call Prohibition and then they can't use those sided cards anymore, whoa, now what? I've done this to Infernity players before where I've gone Shadow Imprisoning Mirror and then Prohibition on Typhoon, and he couldn't do anything the whole game. He was stuck behind those two cards, and there was nothing he could do. And so for that reason, there's always going to be top decks that have removal that are not based around Typhoon. You need some sort of spell and trap removal that isn't Mystical Space Typhoon, or you're going to open yourself up to that sort of a threat. Now, Mermails have it, Dragon Rulers have it, even stuff like Dragonity has it, and all sorts of other decks have it, but the decks that don't, those are the decks that I worry about. And I keep bringing this up time and time again. Unthemed removal is pretty much, in my opinion, the single best attribute any archetype can have. You need to have unthemed removal, and it's got to be really good. Thankfully, there are decks that have it. Unfortunately, perhaps, it's very obvious that those are very much the only decks that see play. You look at all the top decks, with maybe the exception of Evil Swarm, they all have on-theme removal. And Evil Swarm doesn't, but it's got Ophion, which is something else entirely. It's got also Infestation, which is something else entirely. So, there's that. Prohibition is an extremely good card, and Typhoon's an extremely good card, but one definitely beats out the other, and it just depends on who draws it first and who can protect it first. Prohibition plus the Stardust Dragon's just as good. It's nuts. You can do all sorts of things. Okay, so that's one comment out of the way. Let's talk about shoot, what was I going to talk about? Yeah, I guess there wasn't anything else in the comments that I wanted to approach. I think I talked a lot about some of this stuff last week, so it's kind of hard to continue to elaborate on that. Yeah, it's a matter of keeping your sided cards safe, because if you just let them sit out there, they're just going to get blown up by the opponent, and they won't be worth a whole lot to you if they're in your graveyard. It's just stupid things like summon Thunder King Ryo and then leave it there. Okay, big deal. Summon Thunder King Ryo set 3. Now that's a board that I can get behind. And building your deck and building your side deck around that, and also choosing side deck cards that you can protect. Not just like siding things that you can't do anything with. Like, I wouldn't just side Ryo because it's good. I would side Ryo in decks that I can protect it in. I wouldn't just side Packy, Fossil Dynapachy, just in anything. I would cite it only in decks that I can protect it in, of course. And that's something that's somewhat obvious, and then I see a lot of people just kind of get screwed because they don't really do a whole lot of that. Like, Spellbook players that side Consecrated, I don't think is that good. And there was some people who were trying that, and they got away from it pretty quick. The problem with Spellbooks is they don't really have any cards that protect their monsters. I mean, they do. They've got, Phoenix Chain and Phoenix Wing and such, but they're not really designed around keeping their monsters safe. That's not the deck that they are. So, I guess, they've got Wisdom, but they're not really designed around, like, preventing attacks and such. If you just summon a monster and run into their Consecrated, you're probably going to get through. So, different ways to look at that, of course. And as I talked about in the article, Stardust Dragon is king right now. It's crazy good. And the only thing that really hurts Stardust Dragon is Big Eye and Crimson Blader. Crimson Blader is huge, and all the time we're talking about that card. It comes up in every discussion. It's impossible to avoid it. That thing is ridiculous because it stops everyone. Just everyone is playing level 5 and higher. It's crazy. If you look through a lot of the top decks that we've been posting to TCG Player, that Jason's been diligently working on, you can see it's just Dragonity Rulers, Dragon Rulers, Dragonity Rulers, Dragon Rulers, Dragonity Rulers, Dragonity Rulers, Dragon Rulers, Assault Mode Dragon Rulers, Evil Swarm, Prophecy, Dragon Rulers, Dragon Rulers, Dragon Rulers, Dragon Rulers, Evil Swarm, Dragon Rulers. Oh, yeah, a lot. And those are all regional topping decks. IIRC, or are they top 32? No, they're top 32 for that's YCS. I don't even remember what it's called. Yeah, it is absolutely a Dragon Ruler format right now. There's no doubt about that, and you've got to accept that. You've got to accept that it is, again, Dragon Rulers. It's their format to lose, and everything else has to compete with that. Even Prophecy is getting its butt kicked right now. And yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, all right. Karkari Gear Gear kind of popping up. It might be something to side for. I think I talked about Gear Gear before, though. Nothing too impressive there. And Xyz Encore being such a big card, it's making Evil Swarm hard to play. You see some Evil Swarm kind of crack the top 32 and then just fall off right away. It can't always, excuse me. It can't always compete at that level because everyone in the top 32 is citing Xyz Encore. In fact, when I was writing my article for this week that just went up, I basically said, the first thing I'm going to put in there is 2 Xyz Encore because I think it's so important to make sure that matchup is in your favor. Although I have heard a lot of people transitioning over to some different cards, seeing a lot of Divine Wrath pop up too, which has been really interesting. It's a card that I've been waiting to see play for a long time, and now it's finally making a return, which is kind of cool. Blue Eyes Ruler Dragonity is a thing. It's crazy. It's just, yeah, it's nuts. This format is wide open as long as you're playing dragons. So that's your biggest matchup to side against. Unfortunately, they have Blaster as well as Typhoon, so the whole Prohibition trick doesn't work. They've got a lot of ways to get past Stardust, and they've also got Dragosack, which they can get to and then start taking out things. Or they could get Big Eye and take your monster that's stopping them, and all that sort of nasty stuff. Dragon Rulers don't care about one-for-one traps. You need to have those traps that are stopping them from making any sort of plays at all. And in a lot of cases, obviously Vanity's Emptiness is a thing. Or not. I hate that phrase, and then I just used it. Obviously Vanity's Emptiness is a very potent card, and then Imperial Iron Wall, but they're big big targets for either Typhoon or for Blaster. Although I would say Wall supported by Stardust is probably one of your best options because they can't get a bigger monster out, and they've got to like try to synchro over you, and they really can't do that with Debris Dragon. Debris Dragon isn't set up to do that very well if they're running that version. But then they've also got, if they're running with Blue Eyes stuff, they've got a Blue Eyes White Dragon that's at 3k, and see how it goes. They've got a lot of options, they have a lot of versatility, and above all, they have a lot of versatility, and it's making side deck choices really tough, at least for me. It feels really tough to write articles right now because Dragon Rulers just get around everything. It's such an easy thing to lose to a deck that sides all of the hate, that can counterside all of the hate. It's, yeah. Oh! Sure, yeah. They definitely lose to a lot of things. But they can get around those cards most of the time. So, again, I'm kind of excited for December. I'm hoping to see a certain someone's go to 2 per deck. Looking at you, Blaster Redox Tempest title. Hopefully. Anyways, yeah, I think that's about it for today. Another kind of shortish video. Of course, this week's article is on Conversion Horus Rulers, which plays one of my favorite cards in the game, Horus the Black Flame Dragon. I love this card, and I just could not pass up the opportunity to talk about it. It is a lot of fun. The deck is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to actually play the card, Horus again, and just have summon the level 6, and then watch your opponent kind of go, oh, and then you attack with it. They have this kind of sad face on, and then you make it a level 8, and it's kind of cool. It's a neat card. It's fun to play. It's enjoyable. I will say this much: if you look at the deck list and you go, man, that looks really expensive, you can probably pull it off. Not running the Sacred Star Sword, not running the Dragunity variant, running like Cards of Continents instead and some other stuff for like a budget version. This could be the basis of a really solid budget Dragon Ruler deck. Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's fun. I mean, definitely look into it. Like, the version that I posted on there is really expensive. In fact, it's beyond what I'm capable of buying right now. So, but if you have the stuff for it, hey, give it a shot. Or just run, the standard if you're lame and you like running lame things because you have no honor in your family. No, I'm just messing. But yeah, check it out. And then next week we will be talking about the YCS because that's what we do. Talk about YCSs when they're done. And there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. San Mateo. Is that Mateo? Is that how you say that? I don't even know. I should brush up on my California lingo. I live on the other side of the country, so I don't know. Yep. Anyways, that's about it for me. Thank you for listening, as usual. And until next time, then.